there seems to be some confusion over how many kids you have. It's often said to be over 100. Can you explain how many kids you have?
The truthful answer to this question is I don't really know how many biological kids I have exactly, because at a certain point in my life, about 15 years ago, I decided that it was a good idea to be a sperm donor. Initially, a friend of mine asked me to help because they were trying to have a baby with his wife, and they experienced certain health issues that prevented them to do it the natural way. And he asked me, he told me we don't want to just rely on some random anonymous genetic material. We want somebody we know and respect to be the biological father of our kid. And I said, you gotta be kidding me. It sounds ridiculous. What are you even talking about? But then I realized it's actually a serious issue. And they were not the only couple struggling with that. So eventually I got persuaded into doing more of it. I can't say I'm incredibly proud of that, but I think it was the right thing to do, particularly at the time when I thought, okay, I probably don't have much time on this planet left. Things are getting trickier and trickier. So if I can help some couples have babies, let's do it. And then more recently, when I was working on my will, I realized that I shouldn't make a distinction between the kids conceived naturally and the kids who are just my biological kids that I never seen. As long as they can establish their shared DNA with me someday, maybe in 30 years from now, they have to be entitled for a share of my estate after I'm gone. And that made a lot of noise in the news for some reason. People get very excited by this kind of news. I got a lot of messages from people claiming they're my kids. I got a lot of requests from people asking me to adopt them. The memes were priceless, but understanding that it's not a thing that most people do, I don't see anything wrong with it. If anything, I think more people should be donating sperm.
So yeah, we should say like the 100+ kids is from that, and you also have naturally conceived kids. And it was a pretty bold decision from a financial perspective, to treat them all equally. And also quite interesting was that you kind of said that they don't receive any money for the first few decades of their life. Can you describe that thinking?
Yeah, I think overabundance paralyzes motivation and willpower. It's extremely harmful, particularly for young boys, to grow up in an environment where they can be proud not of their own achievements, but of their father's achievements, of their father's wealth. This removes the incentive to work on developing their own skills, removes the incentive to study, to work. So I thought if they're gonna have this money, it should be something that they would only get when they're already adult. It's still risky. But one of the reasons I decided it makes more sense to divide this huge wealth that I'm likely to leave behind among 100 or more than 100 people is that it won't be too much for every single descendant But at the same time, some people did the calculation. It's still many, many millions of dollars for each child. So I'm not sure it helps too much.
On the topic of abundance, offline, we had a lot of fascinating philosophical discussions, one of which was about the mouse paradise experiment, also known as Universe 25. It's an experiment from the 1960s and early 70s, conducted by ethologist John B. Calhoun. And we can talk about this one for hours also, I'm sure. But it was an experiment with a few hundreds of individual mice compartments. And they provided them with unlimited food, water, nesting, no predators, stable temperatures, and frequent cleaning. Basically, the definition of abundance as far as mice go. And the interesting aspect of this experiment is that at first the population doubled, it grew very quickly, but then it leveled off and certain really negative social things started happening, like mothers neglected to kill their young, violent attacks and hypersexual activity became widespread. Some quote unquote beautiful ones, largely inactive, well groomed mice withdrew, refusing to mate or interact. So, all of these kind of societal qualities that we see as negative for the functioning of a society started to emerge because of the abundance. And finally, the collapse. The reproduction rates crashed, social dysfunction spread to the next generation, and eventually just went extinct. It didn't just plummet to a low level, it plummeted steadily to zero, despite the fact that there was ongoing resource abundance. As this description states, the last mouse died surrounded by untouched food and water. So, I mean, there's deep wisdom to that about abundance. It seems you've mentioned this in different contexts throughout this conversation. It seems like scarcity, it seems like constraints, it seems like non-abundance is essential for human flourishing, which is a counterintuitive notion. It's true for mice, and I think it's probably true for humans too.
We have evolved to overcome scarcity. Almost by definition, there has never been such thing as infinite amount of food or entertainment in our lives before now. We seem as a species to lose our ability to identify purpose in a world where you have everything and everything loses its meaning. Restrictions are important. I think, though, that they should be coming from within. It should be self-restriction rather than a restriction in order to create purpose and meaning in life. In a way, I was lucky in a very counterintuitive way because I grew up poor. I didn't have money when I was a teenager. I had the same jacket for years, which was bought on a second-hand marketplace. My father wouldn't receive his salary as a university professor for months because the Russian state was almost bankrupt back then. My mom had to juggle 2 jobs to take care of us. It was not easy, but it also created purpose, it created meaning, it created priorities. It allowed us to focus on things that mattered. It allowed us to develop our character and intellectual abilities. Now, if we had everything, why do anything? These mice suffered societal collapse that was irreversible. And this is not an accident. This kind of experiment has been repeated countless times. At a certain point, social dysfunction and the erosion of social roles becomes contagious. and the society gradually degrades into a chaotic collection of individuals unable to take care of the next generation or even to produce the next generation. And it goes extinct.
It's fascinating because we're creating technologies, and this is what AI is proposing to our future generations as a problem to solve, which is AI may very well create abundance. And so we will be like these mice, potentially. Whether it's AI or other kinds of technologies that increasingly give more and more to all of us. And it is a thing that is good, decrease the amount of suffering in the world, increase the quality of life. But as we reach towards that abundance, the fabric that connects us, rooted in our biology that's developed by evolution, might create a real challenge for us.
We should find the right balance between chaos and order, between self-restriction and freedom for creativity.